Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another session at the India Mobile Congress 2021. India is on its path to provide digital connectivity through optical fiber projects and network infrastructure investments to bring connectivity to the masses. We currently invest approximately 0.5% of the GDP on digital infrastructure annually, compared to some of the larger economies like the US, UK, Germany, and Japan that contribute anywhere between 1 to 1.5% of their GDP on digital infrastructure. The government, together with the private sector, is supported by forward-looking regulations to speed up infrastructure deployment, are required to realize the vision of novel policies like PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, as well as Digital India, BharatNet, and Ghar Tak Fiber. Realization of these policies will assist in bridging the much evident digital divide and provide ubiquitous and quality services to far-flung and underserved communities of the country. A favorable policy environment would also enable telecom infrastructure companies to transition to new business models hinged on fiber, data centers, smart cells, and smart cities enablement. This session, Gati Shakti for Digital Infrastructure, Strengthening the Backbone of Connectivity, would discuss the current state and roadmap to further enhance the robustness of India's digital infrastructure and realize the vision of broadband for all. So without much ado, let me introduce you to the participants of the discussion. We have Mr. Dua. Mr. Dua is the Director General of Digital Infrastructure Providers Association of India. He's also a veteran of the industry. We have Ravi. Ravi Gandhi is the President and Chief of Public Policy and Regulatory with Reliance Jio Infocom. His career spans over 27 years and has held various positions in DOT, Government of India, and leadership positions in the industry. We have Mr. Balaji. He's the Chief Regulatory and Corporate Affairs Officer at Vodafone Idea Limited. Balaji is also a member of the core leadership team of Vodafone Idea. He leads the company's regulatory, public policy, and government relations activities, along with industry advocacy, corporate communications, reputation management, and CSR. He has rich experience of over 30 years in telecom and IT sector in diverse functions and holding leadership positions in technology, device companies, and telecom operators. He's also the chairman of ASSOCHAM, National Digital Communications Council. We have Mr. Amit Jha. He's Director, Government Affairs, Corning, India. He was also an advisor in Ministry of Electronics and IT in the Government of India and was responsible for formulation and implementation of various schemes for promotion of electronics manufacturing ecosystem in the country. He has also worked in the Industry Association of Manufacturers Association for Information Technology as Director Public Policy. We have Vineet. Vineet Sirpaul is the Senior Vice President, Space Teleinfra Private Limited. He's a telecom professional with more than 20 years of experience and also the former CEO and executive director of Nutec India Limited. We have Jatinderpal Singh. He likes to call himself JP. So JP heads the IP and optics at RBC Nokia India Limited. JP is responsible for IP and optical business for all CSPs and non-CSP customers in India, with over 25 years of professional experience in services, sales, technology, government relations, and business management positions. He has held several leadership roles. We have Mr. Dharmender Khajuria, who heads the network partnerships at Bharti Airtel. He is a general management and operations executive with over 24 years of experience in the consumer durable products and telecom in diverse geographical and multicultural environments. So that rounds up all our panelists. As you can see, this is a very, very deep and widely spread panel, and hopefully we'll really learn from their insights on the topic that we have. So I think without really spreading this, may I just request each one of you to actually give what you think as your opening remarks on something which is going to be very critical in how this sector really evolves in the coming years with 5G introduction, etc. So may I just request Mr. Dua to go in first, and then I'll request each of you to add in your opening comments. Mr. Dua, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shobhit, and good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see everyone, though virtually. I think thanks to COINT putting up everything together. I think my congratulations and compliments to the COI, including KPMG and led by General Co-Chair and team, putting everything together. This is the second time again, we are again on a virtual conference, which is again a big challenging one. Be that as it may, opening batsman always has the challenge, but then let me just start the inning in any case. So as far as the if you look at the whole thing in the infrastructure side, I think Gati Shakti has been a great visionary program of the Honorable Prime Minister. Whether it is a Gati Shakti, whether it's a Ghar Fiber, whether it's a Digital India, let me just recap the role that the infrastructure has played, continues to play, and also will continue to play is with his program, with the program of the Digital India, financial inclusion, etc. This is what is the Industry 4.0. Now, Gati Shakti master plan has a lot of relevance as far as the telecom sector, including a unified portal which is being made is concerned. This mission, which has been launched by the government, will certainly upgrade the infrastructure which is needed. And in view of the emerging technologies, that is 5G or IoT or AR, VR, I think the infrastructure is needed, is a very important figure. Now, this Gati Shakti essentially is a digital platform, and there are many industry, many ministries which are going to play a very major role into this. The ministries that are involved almost, I don't want to name those ministries, which are going to be essentially providing the platform is telecom, railways, posts, and you can name anything. Now, coming back to as far as the telecom sector itself is concerned, the PM's Gati Shakti program holds very high relevance for the telecom sector, mainly in terms of, I'm going to say two things: cross-sector infrastructure development, sharing, and bringing in more investment for rollout of the future networks such as 5G, AR, VR, IoT, etc., etc. Now, with that, I think what is happening in most of the country, we are already, I think, looking forward to a huge infrastructure development. I think if you look back the last 2 years, I think this pandemic and the COVID has really brought, I would put it on the positive side, a lot of opportunities that has been come. Whatever we have done, digitalization or even learning, like Balaji was saying, where do you get all this video? Where do you get all this video? I think 2 years back, probably we would have found difficult to do that. I think this is what has been a great opportunity. Now, if we look at cross-sector, two things I will say, share best, I'll leave it to the cross-sector collaboration with other utilities. Now, water, gas, electricity, broadcasting, railways, for sharing them. Today, as a telecom infrastructure provider, I have limitations to do that. I think that is where it comes in, that if you create an infrastructure or the highway authority creates it, which is difficult to be shared. You create another utility when you want, you cannot shoot that. Then the telecom infrastructure can also be shared, which is a sharing model which has been itself emulated by globally. If you look at today, you have 650,000 towers and is being shared by 2.3 million. Mix of shared between the microcell, picocell, and all that stuff, which is a model which is great. Now, coming back to what are the challenges that we get now: availability of the land, availability of the properties of the other ministries. Now, the more important role that is required is the state coordination between the state and the center is important. The ROW rule, which came in 2016, I think is yet to be implemented by all the states. The recent amendment, if you look at that, if you have to go for 5G, if you have to go the new technologies, I think the fiberization is going to play a major role. And this fiberization, if you look at the latest, as far as the government is concerned, they have taken a key initiative is that putting up the allowing aerial fiber to be put across the poles, which is going to be very, very beneficial if you have to adopt the new technologies. Today, only 30% of the towers are fiberized. What you need is another 70% to be done by the end of the next year, and maybe 100% was there. So that is where I think we are lagging behind on this. Maybe I think the with this Gati Shakti, and when all these states, and then the government has also taken a step, they are going each of the regions first of all. Recently they held this in Lucknow. Next they are going to hold, putting all the ministries together so as to ensure the development of the infrastructure which is needed immediately. I will rest. I will continue next time. Next one, I give it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Dua. I think in that short span, you've already added so many topics. My mind is buzzing with so many things that I'd like to ask you, but obviously time is limited. May I just quickly move on to Vineet? Vineet, what are your opening thoughts on this? I know you play a very crucial role because it's not only the fiber, it is what how you will enable this within the buildings because that's what you guys specialize in. So, what are your opening thoughts on that, please?
Yes, thanks, Shobhit. I think Dua Sahib has summarized it very correctly. I think the role of infrastructure providers in creating a backbone for the Gati Shakti program, which is a visionary idea by our great leader PM Modi ji, and connecting all the ministries and different forms of transport medium. I think it's a great vision. Uh, and as we all know, that most of these ministries are housed in offices which are inside buildings. Most of the work is going to be done inside buildings alone. And most of the data that we all see is all being generated indoors. 150% of this data, the growth of greater than 150% has been on the handheld devices. So while, of course, fiberization is very important, fiber networks are very important. I mean, they form the backbone. At the same time, the handheld networks, the mobile networks, they're equally important for people to communicate with each other. And that's where I think the role of infrastructure providers is emphasized in rolling out IBS networks, in rolling out last mile mobile networks inside the buildings and in all the difficult places where mobile signals are not able to penetrate. When we talk about Gati Shakti, which is more about transportation, all the airports, all the railways, railway stations, all the terminals of MRTS or the metros, and especially the tunnels and indoors. I mean, they definitely require solutions for people to get connected, be it an emergency or be it any work that they have to do, uh, be it any sort of a decision that has to be made. So people should have access to connectivity on the go, and this is especially emphasized in the in this pandemic scenario where we've seen people working from homes and now people working from anywhere. So slowly there's been shift to work from everywhere and anywhere. So if I am going to work from anywhere and everywhere, I have to be connected 24 cross 7. So I think that is where the infrastructure providers can play a big role in the Gati Shakti vision of our Prime Minister.
Thanks, Vineet. Indoors will always continue to be a big driver of how we enable this thing. So thank you. I'll shift over to Mr. Jha quickly. So what are your thoughts on this? I know you provide a lot of the infra or the you're really one of the OEMs who provides a lot of the technological solutions to this. But how do you see this panning out?
So thanks, Shobhit, for the warm introduction and setting the context. So very good afternoon to all distinguished panelists and friends from industry. So it's always a great pleasure, to participate in Indian Mobile Congress, and it's considered to be one of the marquee telecom event. As Dua sir has already said, that infrastructure is one of the critical and significant element, which has helped countries transform itself because of the multiplier effect it creates in terms of seamless movement of goods and services, reducing the cost of logistics, creation of jobs, creation of urban centers, and so on and so forth. So, with the announcement of Project Gati, Honorable Prime Minister has made a paradigm shift in the decision making and the way we used to work on an infrastructure project, where a lot of time was spent in mere planning, and the implementation was also very complex because of multiplicity of various stakeholders involved. So, I think with the Project Gati, now as the decision will be more synchronous and the implementation will also become more effective and efficient. So for example, talking about any infrastructure, let's say we are laying a road, a lot of things has to be, planned in advance. There is electricity, there is a water, there is a duct infrastructure, other amenities are there. So there's all approval and the clearances has to come at one go. Many times this road feed into railway lines, these railway lines feed into ports. So this project Gati is all about, the holistic development of the entire infrastructure. So in a way, you can say it's not just about the infrastructure. It is all about the connecting lives, connecting, improving the quality of life. Now, the topic that you have selected, Shobhit, for today's discussion, which is like Gati Shakti for digital infrastructure, strengthening the backbone of connectivity, is very close to my heart because the word connectivity resonates with the product and services which Corning provides in terms of optical fiber, cable and connectivity solutions. So I'm glad that we have played a very significant role in the development of of the telecom sector since 1980. India is one of the country where we have set up our optical fiber plant, and which is like true to government vision of Make in India for the world. As I think Dua sir also said that the digital infrastructure per se is not the central theme in the project Gati, but again telecom is going to play a sort of a facilitator, enabler, as lot of investment will go in terms of next generation infrastructure. There will be deployment of modern technology, GIS based ERP system. There is going to be a coordination between like 16 odd ministries and department on a real time basis. So that is how the telecom will play a significant role. And I remember what our Honorable Prime Minister has said, that infrastructure is not just about highways. Fine, these are information highways, you can say. Fine. So as rightly pointed out by one of the fellow panelists also, that currently our expenditure on digital infrastructure is, I think, less than 0.5%. Very recently, I was reading somewhere that US is spending like $65 billion, in upgradation of their telecom infrastructure. UK is making like 87% of their premises to go on gigabit broadband. So the message that I want to convey, that I think Project Gati is going to increase the pace, the spend, as well as adoption of digital infrastructure going ahead. So this is what is my take on the subject. Over to you, Shobhit.
Thanks, Amit. And, Gati obviously means speed, and this is what it's very important. And one central theme that you guys are highlighting over and over again is obviously that it's not the sequence only, it's also the harmonization within the sequence that's going to be important. I think we've all experienced how roads get dug up after they're just made, right? Because of the lack of sequence and the harmonization between departments. And it's not going to be only DOT. Every infrastructure participant is going to take a part. So very, very clear. Thank you. Maybe I can just move to Dharmender. Dharmender, what are your thoughts on this? As we move through some of these complex discussions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shobhit, for bringing me in. Good afternoon to everybody. I think Gati Shakti, the project which has been rolled out or announced by our Honorable Prime Minister, I think it is to build India future. When I'm saying India future, that is based on digital connecting, digitally the entire India. And if you look at all the 4 pillars, whether it is railways, roadways, ports, and airports, everything is getting connected. How I see it, I think it is not only a project, but this is what is going to catapult India to the next level. What changes with Gati Shakti program? I think it is the integrated and a holistic approach which I see. It's not a simple project because 16 odd ministries are coordinating, and like you said, if the road is being dug, so it should be dug once only. It definitely will give 360-degree view of what is happening in the infrastructure projects, so that all the stakeholders can participate. And this will also help us in doing the business easily. So I look at this way, that if we have to provide connectivity to people, so if the road is being dug, so the approvals which we normally seek afterwards, whether it is a forest approval, whether it is a ROW approvals, all the approvals should come at once. I mean, this is the kind of expectation we have from this project. As you rightly pointed out, that Gati means speed. So we are expecting that with this project, the vision of Honorable Prime Minister to have 35 lakh kilometers of fiber, 4.5 kilometers of circuit kilometers of transmission lines. I think that is going to happen. If that is going to happen, and that has to happen, then only the integrated approach or the platform which is being built, which will have a visibility to all the stakeholders. My take on this is that we as a stakeholders, if telecom operators are involved into this, and from day one we know that this is a project which is going on and where we have to lay the fiber, or maybe the telecom infrastructure, I think that is going to help us big time. As Dua sir pointed out, that ROW 2016, the rules are still to be implemented across the state. So my expectation from this project is very simple, that the coordination between the center and the state, it should not happen that the project is happening but the states are still not implementing it, because the roads or the highways have to cross the states, and the states have to participate to see this dream becoming a reality. So this is my take on this project. Thanks, Shobhit.
Thanks, Dharmender. Again, this was in some of my pre-discussions came about very clearly. It is not only the imperative of one part, it's the imperative of all. And if an inclusive format can be actually followed in most of the infrastructure developments, I think it'll help hasten a lot of that thing. But like Mr. Dua rightly, he stirred a hornet's nest right at the beginning of the debate. The coordination amongst all is going to be, and the weakest link will be wherever this breaks. So that's very important. Thanks so much. So JP, may I just shift quickly to you? I know you even in your pre-discussion, you said speed. So Gati is speed. So how do you see this really? Because you've seen, I think, some parts of the story in your entire journey career.
Yeah, good afternoon, Shobhit, and a very warm wishes to all the panelists, and thanks for having me. Yes, speed, Gati, or the Gati and the Shakti both are, very true to this thing, because this is a very ambitious and I would say very mega project, which if you look from a very holistic point of view, I mean, having so many ministries involved and so many other aspects of this thing involved. So I think, as I said in my pre-discussion also, I think most of the times if we have to reap benefit of these schemes and policies, which I think it is a very forward-looking policy by Government of India. So the execution and time to market, if I have to say for anything, is the key here. How are we going to execute? How soon can this be given to a local, to the customer, whether it is an internal or an external customer? And then while building this thing, learning from the past, and then also having a scheme of this major nature. I mean, this includes the aspects of security, because security these days, with so many things which are going on, internet and everything, we need to have very secure, networks, and building new technologies coming into this thing. And also the use cases, which will be very specific to the ministries, need to be thought upfront. And those things have to be developed upfront and in coordination with everyone. So speed, security, use cases, so many things to do it. I mean, I think one can keep on speaking, but these are the things which we need to really think of and see that how we take it forward. And more importantly, as I said, I think that Gati has to be there in this Shakti.
Thanks, JP. Gati in Shakti, yes. And Shakti in Gati also.
Absolutely.
Both yes, absolutely.
And just to add one more point, I think from a data consumption point of view, we all know that as Indians, as a nation, we are the highest data consumers across the world. But then
we love to talk and we love to express ourselves. Absolutely.
And here it is. I think I would say good data versus the good to have data. Now, this what we are talking is a good data which end user is going to benefit out of it. So rather than digital divide, it is a data divide, if I have to just put a word over there.
Always, you'd love to add something which not only adds humor, but also adds a little bit of controversy. Thanks, JP. This is so very true. In fact, in an earlier discussion, this gentleman mentioned to me 5G as it comes. The fiber connectivity is so important, because from now on, it will become the basic ingredient of everything, because you will not only put fiber for 5G, you are putting fiber for 6G, you're putting fiber for 7G, which is an eventuality. And while it took technology transition 10, 8, 7, and now 5, it'll probably be even shorter as we go forward. So it's going to be very important that this transition also happens with as much speed so that we get Shakti at the end of it. So thank you so much. Balaji, may I come to your colorful background and your comments, please, very quickly on this. What do you see? I know there's a lot of discussion that have already been said, but I know you will always have an ace up your sleeve on a new proposition that you would like to add.
I think, thank you so much, Shobhit. First of all, to all our delegates, a warm welcome. From the industry, I think, as has been said by so many speakers before, we wholeheartedly applaud the Honorable Prime Minister and the government for visualizing this National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity, or Gati Shakti as it's called. In the end, I see at the core is a digital platform that allows for multiple ministries to collaborate for integrated planning and coordinated execution. To me, that's really an important element to this whole project. And clearly, as has been pointed out before, for the success of this program, digital highways need to be equally built into the planning and execution stage. I guess we could visualize India in the future as a gigabit society, which will require ubiquitous connectivity and with massive 4G and 5G deployments, which means we need to have smart infrastructure rollout. At the moment, if you look at it, the entire onus of putting a digital smart infrastructures upon the telecom operators and the infrastructure providers, who not only have to deal with the complexities of digital networks rollout, but also have to deal with state and local administrations, which often are not aligned with the central government vision of seamless and affordable broadband services for our citizens. And therefore, this becomes a unique opportunity for addressing a lot of long-standing issues, things relating to time-bound, affordable ROW for telecom infrastructure. And in my view, it would require for structured mechanisms and forums for coordination between central ministries, industries, state and local administrations. And these are done if there's a common vision and if there are digital platforms in the place. And frankly, from the industry point of view, we would be very happy to partner with the government on this initiative. And if I were to also put it in simple terms, I think this is one part of nation building that requires for us to collaborate, start working, breaking all silos, whether it's a government level or whether it's a state or local level, or whether it's at the industry level. Collaboration is the key when you talk about nation building, and I think this is an opportunity for us to create a new gigabit society for India.
Thank you, sir. You know, when you were saying about the coordination and all aspect, I remembered some of the visuals, if you recall, during the Cold War era, there used to be that red phone on the desk of the president, right? That you needed to have a hotline. And that's exactly going back to what you guys have been saying and what Mr. Dua really started. So is that, do we have that ability to just pick up the phone and make sure that we are coordinated? And if there is something which is coming up as a roadblock, do we have that inherent ability to just pick up, say, listen, this is going wrong, and we move that thing? It just takes so much time, which then, you know, the world has moved on, or, you know, the construction is moved on, and that's why it disrupts. So very well said. Thank you so much for that. Ravi, may I come to you? I know you've been patiently waiting your turn. You're always very patient in your deliberation, but, you know, I just wanted to, while obviously I'll request for your opening comment, you know, the dream and end goal of what is it to really realize a truly connected and digitized nation? How would you think, what would it be? How would you paint that picture? Because that's central to this theme. It's obviously laying the fiber and being providing fiber connectivity is going to be the backbone of it. But what would it really mean for us? How do you see this?
Thank you, Shobhit. I think this had been a very interesting discussion by the previous speakers. And about Pragati ki Gati and Bharat ki Shakti, I think I would like to add few lines in between, which is Pragati ki Gati and Gati se Shakti. And Bharat ki Shakti, Bharat Gati se Shakti. I think Gati, when we say, is all about what we are talking about in the telecom sector. When we move from 3G to 4G to 5G and all the media, digital, it's all about Gati, all about speed, how you are increasing the speed. And this Gati Shakti program, I don't see this as a just a digital platform, because digital platform may be just the front end, but it is about changing the mindset, the changing the work, breaking the shackles and silos, and making all the government departments and ministries coming together, doing common planning, interacting with private sector, and everybody working together. So change in the mindset, which will go behind that digital front end, digital platform front end, is going to be most important, because just building a system is not going to solve the problem, but in fact, the policies behind the system or the backstage policies are going to change the system and make this whole program successful. That's what I am expecting, that that would be the outcome of this project, and that should be the outcome of the project. As far as I think your second part of the question is concerned, what do you see? I see no person in the country remains unconnected for both voice and data. Every customer gets the same services, same service experience, whether he is sitting in Delhi or Bombay or in the remotest part of the country, whether he is a rich person or a poor person or not so rich person. So they get all kind of same service everywhere. I think that's what any telecom person or any person who is working in creation of digital infrastructure would love to see. All touch points of services. When you move from a hospital to another hospital, to a pharmacy, or to say some other place, your data or records moves along with you. You don't have to carry your records. You don't have to do registration at every place wherever you go. That's the true, I think, digital version of the life which we would love to have. The communication such as video, like here we are sitting on the video, I just move out, the same video is connected to my mobile phone, and from mobile phone it is connected to TV. So seamless experience of the digital thing when I move. All government offices or utilities, I don't have to go to any government office, whether be it driving, though some of the things are done, but still at the back end, while the front end is digital or the website, but the back end is still the same way. You have to you go for any utility, ultimately you have to land up to the government office to get those things done. So I think it has to be completely digital, be it your identity, be it your transactions, banking transaction, your electricity bill, and so many other things. So when everybody in the country is able to utilize that, then that is truly digital India, is what I see. And the benefit which it would bring is, it will keep us connected, keep human connected. They are staying connected with your family, friends, get entertainment. They feel secure because they get the security, and efficient nation due to connectivity. That's another important point, because that's what I think the aim of when Prime Minister came out with this, that Pragati se Gati or Gati se Pragati. I think when we get this Gati, we actually move towards an efficient nation, whether it is health infrastructure or logistic infrastructure, etc. Because we have a lot of wastages in logistics which are there, and moment you are digitized, you can cut all those wastages. We can actually call for a war on waste, on all kind of, say, whether it is loss of fuel or loss of time, loss of efficiency, delay in production, loss of crops, or connectivity for the livelihood when fire happens or landslide happens, earthquake happens, cyclone happens. So all these are basically the wastages of economic resources in the society. And I feel that with the digitally connected world, we can cut those wastage, and we can call off that war on waste through connectivity as a part of this Gati Shakti program. Then another area which I see is empowerment of women, and I think the weaker section of society, because on the digital platform, everybody is equal. You can't actually discriminate when you are on, say, Facebook, etc. Then rich and poor, everybody gets the fair chance. So this has, I think, an ability to bring everybody at par. And finally, economic leadership. The connectivity will provide an opportunity to the younger generation, younger entrepreneurs, to lead the world through innovation. And the next round of economic leadership is going to come through this digital connectivity, or say Gati Shakti, is what I feel. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. And I don't know, this panel should not be 45 minutes or an hour. I think we can debate for 6 hours because the confluence of ideas that coming from each of your backgrounds is phenomenal. Gets me thinking, what am I doing and what I'm really doing? But you know, communication or telecom was synonymous with communication. Today, telecom is getting more synonymous with speed of communication, and that's where I think this is so appropriate, both in terms of timing and in the context that we had. So, Ravi, maybe I can put you in a hot seat again. I'll direct a question towards you. Based on what you were mentioning. So, what really do you think should be the key policy focus areas of the government to streamline in regards to the deployment of the necessary digital infrastructure beyond broadband for enabling a digital economy, both in terms of technology, like space communication, or any other aspects that you would actually do, because this will help alleviate the division and try and get us really closely more connected. Where do you see some of the key faults? I know you mentioned some of them, but would you care to elaborate on one or two which are really critical according to you, which will get this Shakti in the Gati?
Yeah, I think in addition to the broadband, which many speakers have spoken about, and I will not take the points of Mr. Dua on the ROW rules, etc. I think he can present those better than me. But in addition to the broadband penetration, there are other things which would be required along with this, like having the data center. Huge data centers which are required, the power which is required for the data center and the networks. That also need to be seen, that because all these data center and the networks are power hungry. So we have to see that we can generate green power and we can provide the power at a affordable price along with the making it green. Second is the connectivity to various services in the form of M2M, IoT, though this may be part of broadband, but it may be outside of broadband as well. So I see those a big role which is being played in industrial automation or home automation using both M2M and IoT devices. And the last but not least, the space communication. Space communication is going to be complementary and supplementary to terrestrial networks. So going forward, while terrestrial networks create a lot of capacity for obviously the dense population which we have, and densely populated our urban areas and other big centers, where satellite may not be as suitable as maybe to the remotest areas. So both actually works as complementary, or I would say supplementary to each other in creating a common network which provides the sufficient capacity and the coverage which is required to connect and provide the services. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. Ravi, Mr. Dua, sir, can I shift back to you? On policy, where do you think, I know you've outlined in some of your opening remarks, which would be the two most important improvements that we should see from the government in terms of making this really happen?
Thank you very much, Shobhit. I think when you look back the background that we started when 2G, I think the whole ecosystem was not in place. Some of us come from the background of 2G itself. The network guys were doing something, and each network, when you had to do, you had to go back to the TEC to get it tested. It was, and when we could only, in 2 years' time from 94 launch, we could only put up over less than 100,000 subscribers. As you rightly say, we have now graduated. If you look back the March 2020, at one time it was thought that, oh, it is going to be tough. How are you going to work on this? To trust me, I think we have graduated from work from home to work from anywhere. And anywhere that is possible only within that period. I think the two things that you wanted me to say, one is the center and the state coordination. And the second one is center-state coordination. I'll give you the example. When we started in March, I think we just barely had 4 or 5 states which were aligned, fairly aligned. I'm not saying the fully aligned. State was there only with the ROW November 2016. I think thanks to this work from home, it became possible to connect with the highest authorities on the chief secretary levels, principal secretary levels, and today we have put in place 31 states on place for the ROW. The question is, there's still a question of implementation of many of these states, though they came out with the guideline, but implementation has been the big issue. So therefore, one of the major points that is required is the coordination between the center, state, and also the implementation of these guidelines, which are, we have to respect the 100 trillion master plan project, which is again, I think, unprecedentedly, not only India, globally as well. The second point that I want to bring it, I mean, one or two more points, that you need to recognize digital communication infrastructure as a critical infrastructure. I mean, these are all parallel activities. You can't say these are serial activities, that first I'll put a fiber, then I'll put a network, and then I'll go to the right of way, then I go to this. I think these are all parallel activity where even the other utilities can also make use of. The second one is, I think, creating BRI is another one, that is Broadband Readiness Index. Now that the 31 states are in place, how do you ensure that beside giving the guideline, they also implement it? The only way that the government decided is that let us bring out a broadband readiness index, which make a competition between the states so that they are. These are some of the things. Of course, you can list on many things, and how if you want to encourage an investment, you need to help those people. In fact, enhancement of the scope of the existing infrastructure guys so that they can bring in investment. These are some of the things that I think the government and the policy makers also have to think. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, sir. I think, what you mentioned about the coordination between state and center, obviously, and then also breeding competition within the executive body to say who will showcase that they are ready and what will be the parameters of getting ready. I think that's BRI is the second time I'm actually, hearing in these discussions on panels. And I think it's a great way of, like you have the, what the UN is now putting it out. You have this ease of doing business, which became very famous and obviously a little infamous a couple of months back as well. But these are great ways of spurring international benchmark and something that will be good. So my next question is directed towards Balaji. So, shared digital infrastructure model is expected to obviously assist in realizing this vision of broadband for all and fiber connectivity. Do you see that we're doing enough on the sharing of digital infrastructure? Is there enough from a regulatory perspective? Is there an even playing field? What is your take on this?
Good question, Shobhit. I think I fully agree with the proposition that sharing is the way forward. That's the only way that scarce resources can be conserved and we can do massive rollouts, which is what the ask of the nation is. And at the same time, you've got to make it affordable, and sharing is the way it gets done. You've seen the examples of it across countless initiatives that this industry has undertaken, from sharing towers to spectrum sharing and a bunch of other things that we have looked at in the past. But if you want to execute a plan for a connected society with 1 billion connected people on broadband, right now we still have 500 million people that are not part of the broadband bandwagon, so to say. If you look at billions of IoT devices and so many applications on Industry 4.0, then the requirement for that is even more acute of sharing. At the same time, part of the sharing starts from actually proper planning and also ensuring that we plan for massive digitalization and data transfers and smart infrastructure. What I believe it would require, apart from a mindshare shift and collaboration being the norm, is also have methods, tools, and processes. Therefore, real-time tools, dynamic visualization tools will definitely help synergy and avoid wasteful expenditure. Why, for instance, do we need to have road digging happening multiple times if it's for gas line or fiber laying or electricity or God knows what else in terms of utilities? That is something that is absolutely critical. So it starts with a mindset shift. It's about, as I said, real-time dynamic visualization of information and sharing that rather than holding it to yourself. because the wasteful nature of their expenditure is visible to all apart from damage and disruption. Also, if I look at it, when you plan for multimodal projects, infrastructure projects, what Gati Shakti envisages, then clearly keeping telecom sector the core of infrastructure planning is critical so that you can create digital highways, visualize them and create at the same time that you're doing physical infrastructure. And that means that the telecom sector, whether it's the operators or whether it's the infrastructure providers, need to be involved right at the beginning of the planning stage, particularly as you plan export promotion zones or smart cities or integrated transportation. All of these which are supposed to boost economic activities, you need to put the telecom operators and the infrastructure players in the initial planning itself, as well as in the execution part. And the third thing I would like to say is that integrated planning has been now done across at all levels, which means going beyond the center to the state and the local administration. And therefore, it requires constant execution to agreed goals right up to the last mile. And to your example that you talked about, the back channels, picking up the phone and speaking and saying, guys, there's something going wrong. Can we huddle and work to solve this and bring it back on rails is again equally important. And the last point on ease of doing business, while fundamentals of ROW have been clearly laid out in the guideline, it's not uniformly followed. It's not enough for 31 states and union territories to say that we have a policy that kind of mirrors the central policy. What about the prices? Are they affordable? Are they not? What about the time-bound and automatic approvals, which is envisaged in case things are not done in a time-bound manner? It's not in place. And therefore, in that sense, there should be no rent seeking and there should be equal access to all operators to ensure innovation and competition. So those are 3 or 4 points I thought I'll bring to fore in the context of what you said about sharing, Shobhit. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I will request Dharmender's insights also on this. I know there might be some common things because these are principles that we're doing, but I just wanted to add in one more element, Dharmender, is that obviously infrastructure sharing is one. I know that there's also, especially in utilities, and obviously telecom is a utility, power is another utility, where it is also because CapEx is, as an operator, you have to spend on spectrum, you have to spend on rollout, you have to spend on ROW. So there's just the avenues to spend is so much, and the sources are obviously limited in the kind of low ARPU nation that we have right now. Where do you think this sharing can be also enabled? Which areas do you actually? And I'm not asking you to make a public statement of policy out here, but where do you see that you've probably, based on international experience, seen that sharing of infrastructure being regulatorily or policy driven? To say, I know that a lot of regulators are encouraging it, but is there any example you've seen where sharing of infrastructure is being mandated? And has it been successful? Where do you think that we can move as in addition to what I was asking Balaji as well?
Sure, Shobhit. I think Balaji explained it well, talking about, how the collaboration, while, we compete in the marketplace, but collaboration and coordination is the key going forward, because we are not only working for ourselves, we are working for the, nation development, as some speaker pointed out. You were talking about, how can we collaborate? I mean, whether it is a utility services, or just to give you an example, I talked about, in my opening remarks, I talked about transmission lines. Now, from a fiber perspective, while in the intracity, we can work with the, gas companies, etc. But in case of transmission lines, we can always use those transmission lines for OPGW fiber. I mean, intercity. While we have to dig the road, that's okay. If some project is going on, some highways are being constructed. Now, just imagine, I'll give you an example, practical example of say Mumbai-Pune highway. In between the road, in the divider, I think the ducts are being laid. The ducts have been laid, and all the operators are using those ducts. And believe you me, in the last 2-3 years, hardly twice or thrice those have been cut. That means if we are coordinating with the state or the center or amongst ourselves, probably we can create a digital infrastructure which is not only a very robust, because ultimately if we are providing a service to the customers, that service should not get interrupted. So while India is growing and the roads are expanding every now and then, but just look at a very simplistic view saying, if the ducts are within the road, within the divider, the roads are going to expand either side of the road, but the divider will remain same. That is one. Second, you talked about, are there some best practices across the globe? Yes, there are many. People, in certain countries, people are working with the waterworks. If the water is an essential commodity, for people to live, why can't we lay the fiber with the water works department? Why can't municipalities take that responsibility of laying a universal duct? Why do, as an operator, as a TOCO or as a OPCO, why do we have to dig the road again? Why can't we have a universal duct for everybody to simply go and blow the pipe? I mean, these are very, very simple things. So we have been thinking and dreaming of dig once. If the road is being constructed, and that's the reason I believe in this project of Gati Shakti, saying, can we realize that dream that once the road is dug, there are enough ducts available. If somebody has to blow in the fiber, that goes away. That is used. So we don't have to. Why are we putting the general public in some kind of limbo? So there are enough examples across the globe where either the government is mandating it, and probably I am expecting that this is what this Gati Shakti project should do. It not only envisages a digital platform, but it also gives some kind of guideline. And this is my expectation from this project, is that empowered group of secretaries should lay a guidelines which should be implemented across the states. Then at the same time, can we create a knowledge center at a central place, a repository of saying this is the state which has done a fabulous job in implementing, so that the same can be replicated across the states? Why do we have to reinvent the wheel again and again? So simplistic guidelines in consultation, not only with the EGOs, but along with all the stakeholders, including the telecom operators, as rightly pointed out by one of the speakers, that we should be invited, when the planning is happening, not after the planning has been done and some work has already happened. Then probably we have to go back to the drawing boards. So Shobhit, just to sum it, there are a many examples across the globe where the utility companies are working together. Right now, if I may speak to you, currently we are not working with the gas companies. Gas pipelines are being laid out just like that. But why can't we use that duct only? That if the road is being dug, why can't we use that? So this project, I think, it comprehensively covers all these things, and my expectation is that this will definitely help the digital infrastructure or the telecom infrastructure to grow in the country and provide connectivity to one and all. Thanks.
Thanks, Dharmender. Some good points in that, definitely. Making sure that we are coordinated not only from the point of view of interdepartmental, but like you said, if we are working with the gas company now, I know that how many licenses for city gas distribution have been put out. Now, can we create one trenching so that the overall cost of infrastructure and laying and implementing that really comes down, apart from increasing the speed? So if you were to lay the duct in that, and you use the USO fund, or the operators come together and say, this is the total value we can contribute, which is a part of what we would have done anyways individually, and then let's lay the fiber. I guess, yes, it just requires that we all come together. So thank you so much for that. I'll shift to JP quickly. JP, as you always, wanted speed. May I just request, your real insights? We've talked a lot about some of these recommendations, etc. On the ground, what is the real challenges? Can you pick two for me and say that, listen, for Shakti to actually evolve out of the Gati, what is the two impediments on the ground? I know ROW permissions are a problem, but like Dharmender was saying, can we try and see how we can work not only as departments, but also as companies together to reduce wasteful expenditure? Where do you see, what two things would you like to say on that?
I think, Shobhit, the first one would be a proper planning of the things. So that if we have a complete plan that how are we going to execute this mega project from complete details, that is one thing. And second, I think, which is more key, is using more digital mechanism to track these projects. and sort of a command center wherein you have, I mean, a very stringent KPIs at each and every level that, okay, this work has to be completed. If there's crossing the threshold, I think there needs to be an automatic, escalation going rather than a person giving an escalation to the command center. Now, having these things in place because there's no other mechanism. And second is, maybe I think we need to work slightly different model. Like we have some other earlier projects which had not worked so well and the delays have been there. Maybe more participation of the private sector would also help over this thing. So if you have to ask me, very few and straightforward cross-functional committees first to identify the issues, a proper planning, especially ROWs, technology and use cases all to be there. And finally, during the execution has to be a command center with a digital control of the KPIs and thresholds so that any escalation and that command center should be empowered, like I think Dharmender said, empowered group of secretaries, or I don't know, I mean, don't want to name those people, but there needs to be someone who has this authority to say, okay, guys, let's talk and let's get it closed. So that is the way if you really have to close this thing in a time-bound manner. Otherwise, I think with so much things and with this nature of the project, state, center, private, government, I think this will get scattered. So my
Thank you so
very
much.
simple view would be this only.
No, JP, thank you so much. Actually, when you were speaking, I was thinking of one example that I could say, and I don't know, with my limited experience, if I can say this with emphatic enthusiasm. The Konkan Railway is one example that I can think of. That the challenge was tremendous. The number of departments were outstanding, right? And yet, with all the adversity of nature and all the challenges, we were able to do it because one, there was will. Secondly, yes, the flow of authority was very clearly defined.
Absolutely.
And third, like you said, the command and control center. Was there something that could be enabled to actually make that flow? And it has now become an icon of what we can do as an implementation within time, cost, and with the efficiency that one can really imagine. So thank you so much for that, thought-provoking address on that. So Vineet, I'll come to you next, and Amit, I'll come to you more from the point of how do we converge on the technology. So just allow me another couple of minutes. Vineet, you mentioned a very important aspect. It's not only about outdoors, it's also about indoors. That's where 80% of the data consumption really happens. And if I look at it from a 5G perspective, where the data consumption expansion is going to happen, but most of it, because it's going to be indoors and with the spectrum that we use, physically characteristics there, propagation through concrete is going to be difficult. So IBS is going to come in more focus. And if I may request, what do you see with all the harmonization that everyone's talking about, interdepartmental as well as with companies? How do you see this coming with the real estate development, or how do you work with both the operators, the government, and the people who are setting up the concrete to actually make this a really efficient part of the game?
Thanks, Shobhit. I think a very important point that all the panelists have raised is on the sharing of the infrastructure. Because there's no point to waste resources. Ravi, I think he mentioned that. And very clearly, I think a couple of points I'd like to make is one on the sharing of infrastructure and definition of digital infrastructure. In fact,
Yes.
the government also understands that it's very important, and that's how they gazetted the National Digital Communication Policy of 2018. But the only thing that we're still waiting is implementation of that policy in letter and spirit. So the clear differentiation between what is active and what is passive. I mean, there's still a lot of confusion between active and passive. And then when the NDCP allows infrastructure providers to get into active infrastructure, I'm not sure why the delay in allowing the infrastructure providers to also get into active. As we all know that the entire infrastructure that is getting created, it is very capital intensive and requires a lot of capex, requires a lot of investments, and all the investors that are coming in fact, telecom has seen the largest investments, in the recent past, and all they have to be very clear on the policy, whether the policy is clear or not, and they actually fear if the policy is not clear. So that is one of the issues that everyone is facing. Coming to your point on how do we harmonize the operators, the developers, the real estate. Very clearly, there have been guidelines in the National Building Code also, because I think Dharmender pointed out, and JP also pointed out, it's very difficult to go back once an infrastructure is created and again start creating an infrastructure. So brownfield is really, really difficult. If it happens in the greenfield, then that's the way to go for it. So even the National Building Code has guidelines on deploying communication infrastructure when the buildings are getting ready. However, the same is not mandated. So while we've been in discussion with various ministries to at least mandate that, while guidelines are there, but unless and until it's mandated, the real estate developers would not put in that extra investment, getting the critical infrastructure in place.
Thank you, Vineet. In our country, I mean, I'm not generalizing, so I mean, I am generalizing, sorry, but the experience is guidelines do not ever work. Till you don't tell that guy you have to do this, I don't think they will ever do that, or they'll be incentivized not to do that. So you're very true. Guidelines need to be mandated in some cases, and guidance or let's say inspiration can be taken from policies like this to actually help people look at it. In my interactions with a lot of heads of companies, CEOs, board members, governance individuals, one very common theme came out when we were about 4 or 5 months into the pandemic, which was that a lot of things that some of them were wanting to convert or introduce as reform within the enterprise were not going through because there was always resistance. And the pandemic has actually aided the cause of a lot of these people to help them reform, right? So exactly that way, the way you were saying, now there's a policy, we can take leadership from that and push some of these authorities to actually include it as mandatory in the requirements. So thank you for that. I think that's a good note as well. Amit, sorry, we coming to you last in this question answer round, but why I wanted to do that is you've heard everyone's views, and you are, not only an OEM, but you are also someone who is innovating on technology, right? And the requirement of all this is not only the physical layer of the fiber that you are laying, which is, ducting and all, but with 5G, you will need densification of network, which will require a lot of microsites, picosites, which is, providing connectivity through the fiber as well as putting what they call power through the cable by itself. So where do you see some of these innovations, and how do you see Corning really supporting in these? Because you guys have been at the forefront of a lot of innovation for the last 3.5 to 4 decades as you've been in India.
A great question, Shobhit. So I think the optical fiber, as you know, is a nut and bolts, the building blocks of the digital infrastructure. Currently, if we see that, I mean, it's also considered to be hardly 1% of your investment and takes 99% from your,
Of the carriage.
Network, yeah. So we have currently the status is like we have 35% of the tower fiberized in the country. We need to double it to 70%. That is one. In last 20 odd years, we have laid 25 lakh kilometer of fiber. This again need to double it maybe next 5-7 years. And also, so there is a lot of work to be done in the fiberization that will further strengthen the telecom infrastructure, and it will accelerate the the agenda and the objective under Project Gati. That is one. Second, as most of the fellow panelists also said, that we are the one of the largest data consumer. So we are consuming a lot of data, and also with the emergence of a lot of technologies like AI or ML or VR or AR, this also calls for further, increasing the reach and the robustness of the telecom infrastructure. Right? I heard a lot of panelists that yes, one thing I agree that to be a truly digitized, and connected nation, it's a journey that we all need to travel together. It's not just the job of the government, industry also. So government can sort of have those clarity in the guidelines or the policies or those regulatory clearances and all. Industry also through their own investments and bringing of new technologies. Maybe a role of academia and R&D institution also counts here. Especially, I'd like to mention the TEC and the BIS, which has been doing a fantabulous job in the standardization and specification, very recently the satellite communication, there has been overhauling of the entire, technical specification also to sort of, to suit the current digital requirement. So it's something, we all need to work together. I think the work on the Project Gati has already begun. I was reading somewhere that a capacity building exercise has begun, onboarding a lot of states and, other departments and ministry. So how well we are able to break that silos, because we do understand that the state and the center don't talk to each other. Many of the departments and the ministry don't talk to each other. So if we are able to break that silos between the department, they all are aligned to the same vision. And as we said, there is a proper command and control, which happens at the EGOS level, or maybe it happens at the PMO level. I think this will be a fantastic project that we all will sort of, give example, as you gave example about the Konkan Railways, or we talk about DMRC projects.
Thank you so much, Amit. I know we probably exceeded time of the panel, but this is Mr. Dua. Sorry, sir. You want to add something?
Yeah, I just thought, I think before you close, I think two things what we need is a critical area which we need to focus is the coordination between the various ministries. And that for that, I just put it to the panelists as a GST type of concept. Well, you can call it a command center, you can call it a knowledge center, but there is a thinking which is going on. I think there is a GST type of concept which can involve all the stakeholders, including the TSPs, IPs, ministries, urban development ministry, I think which can really create, sort of a center where everybody can, I think, come there, discuss there, and thrash out the issue. This is a suggestion. And the second thing, what you said is right. The other example is the legal enforcement or stroke the mandating of it. You take a case of DMRC. A long time back when Sridhar was the MD, I had happened to meet him. And the first thing that he said, Mr. Dua, I had gone back to the government. Before you give me the project, I want two things. Please tell the court not to give any stay orders. Wherever this is one thing. And look at the vision that he had. And there was no stay order. Many places where he wanted to demolish, he wanted to take a case of Kirby Place. I think most of the government places and private buildings were demolished. And that helped us. But I'm coming back to one, create a knowledge center, command center, or GST council. The second one, mandate or legally enforce whatever you want to do. Then only this Gati Shakti and the creation of a digital infrastructure will happen. That's what we just wanted to add. Thank you, sir.
Thank you always for your comment. Yes, Ravi, you also wanted to conclude on something.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to touch upon 2 points which were raised during the course of discussion. One is about sharing. So it's not that telecom industry has not been sharing. Tower is the example which has been copied by the world, and it is no government's intervention. It's not mandated by government. It's all done by private operators like us who have shared the towers on a voluntary basis. So when we talk of sharing, we actually try to include mandation. I think that anything mandatory comes with its own set of issues. I think instead of mandation, it is actually the direction by the government to the government department, say gas authority, to railways, to national highway authority, etc., who have to provide it to the telecom operators on the commercial terms, instead of, because mandation in the legal connotation comes with very negative issues attached to it, because then everyone starts seeing it as a matter of right, and the one who has created may not be obliged to share or may have the issues in sharing of that. Second is that active-passive differentiation was raised by one of the speakers. Active-passive, I think, had been working since last 20 years, and the industry clearly knows what active is and what passive is. And active can be easily done by obtaining a license, because license typically has a lot of issues related to security, etc., which are built into the license. Because when you actually install an active equipment, those issues also starts getting into it. So in my view, there is a clarity as far as active passive is concerned in telecom infrastructure. Thank you.
No, thanks, Ravi. I understand where you're coming from.
I have something else to get on to, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely, Balaji. Thank you so much. I'll just conclude on this. Some obviously very thought-provoking things. The cross-sector harmonization between departments, state, center is very important. The sharing of infrastructure, like we said, again, needs to be emphasized. Do we recognize digital infrastructure as critical infrastructure for the nation as a whole? And this concept of broadband readiness index is a very important way of hastening as well as introducing competition. The fact that if we need to get all of this together, can there be a central council or a command and control center to really make this happen? And if I may, borrow from you, Ravi, the war on waste. If through this we can actually get into that, like all of you emphasize, Balaji also mentioning at length, Dharmender mentioned about it, technology, what Amit mentioned. And, as Vineet was talking about, what you were saying in passive and active is not about the definition only. It's about how all of them need to be harmonized together, right? So that not only the exterior, but also the interiors can be enabled. I think we'll really get to the meaning, and obviously topping it up with what JP was mentioning, speed and really looking at the minutest of the issues that are hindering the coordination between these departments and making sure it's a seamless opportunity, not only for the service providers, but also for the service consumer. So with that, thank you, gentlemen. I know everyone has a very pressing schedule. Balaji will let you off. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you to everyone, Mr. Dua, Ravi, Vineet, JP, Dharmender, and Amit. It's been phenomenal to hear your insights. Thank you so much. I would like to close this session and hope everyone's really enjoyed as much as I enjoyed putting that together with all of the fellow panelists. Thank you for.
Thank you, everybody.